Welcome to the Climate Hive webcast, What Do You Solve? I'm Kevin Drolet, aka Kdro, and I'm here with my co-host and Climate Hive co-founder, Mike Higgins, aka Higo. Our esteemed guest today is Prisca Ezuzu, and we're going to learn how Prisca and her team have improved the lives of people in Nigeria facing energy poverty by lowering costs and increasing power. Prisca was part of the founding team for Enerplaz Engineering, a renewable energy company, and they have innovated so that they've been able to deliver approximately 5 megawatts of installed solar capacity to people in Nigeria. In 2017, Prisca Ezuzu and her team of engineers commenced experimentation with new ideas, and by 2019, she co-founded and launched a renewable energy research, development, and manufacturing company, Encho Nigeria Limited, whose sole purpose was to identify local challenges particular to renewable energy service providers in Nigeria and proffer solutions with them with homegrown technology. In all, Encho has developed 5 distinct products, some of which are patented and are currently being sold in the Nigerian market, one of which is the revolutionary NVAC thermal storage solution. And their business model has been a trailblazer, and its impact on the productivity of small-scale businesses, and they have largely improved the well-being of low-income homes living in underserved communities in the South. So without further ado, I am going to pass it over to Mike. Thank you so much, Prisca, for joining us, and take it away, Mike.
All right.
Thank you.
Prisca, so great to have you with us today. Thank you so much. You know, we're very interested to hear the story of sort of the discovery of the problem, right? And you recognize that there was something that could be improved, something could be changed, right? And you decided that you and your team had unique skills to do that. So we'd love to hear the story of the problem you're solving here, how you came about to recognize it, and then how you came about to form this entity that you've formed. That's really, we'd love to hear that.
Oh yeah, it's really a funny story that started with my trying to find solution to a problem I had. And I sort of thought, wow, if I have this problem, other people may have it also. So why not give the solution to others? So that problem was a lack of power, electricity. In Nigeria, we largely suffer from unavailability of electricity. So there was this period about 15 years ago when we had a terrible grid collapse. There was no power for weeks, for months, and it forced people to now start depending on candles or kerosene lanterns. For those who can afford it, then they have to fall back to their portable generators to run the generators to be able to have access to power. But the twist in that story was, in our community, they would not allow you run your generators overnight because of security concerns. If, for instance, everybody leaves their generator running and there is a problem at night and someone is crying for help, nobody will hear because of the noise. So it is prohibited. You don't run your generator through the night. And secondly, if you're running your generator, it's also a security risk for you because people will assume you have money, so they will come to maybe rob you or attack you. So generally, once it's about 9 to 10 p.m. at night, everybody shut their generator. And you have to go through the hot nights. We are in Africa, where the weather is hot and humid. So you have to bear through that hot night with no light till morning before life continues. So it was a very uncomfortable circumstance or situation that got me thinking, what can I do to help myself? So that was when I started experimenting with rechargeable fans. But the batteries they come with, they don't last longer than an hour. So after an hour, the fan goes off, and then what do you do? So at some point, my husband and I, we now thought of trying to introduce external batteries, recharge batteries from cars, like old batteries from cars. So we go charge them, plug them in, so it now lasts a bit longer. So that was where the idea and the bet of delving into solutions from renewable energy sources was born. Gradually, we were able to see that there are things we can do, energy we can get from the sun to charge these batteries, to be able to provide both power and fan, which were like basic necessities for us then. And we got that solution. Then we started looking for ways to sell it to others.
So yeah, that's the thing about generators is pretty crazy, right? Like just that being a situation that running a generator has all those problems. I know that you've been in the renewable energy space for like 14 years or something, but can you also help us understand, like, how did you transition? How did you get into renewable energy? Is that, something that you were drawn to? What was that process like?
Okay. So yeah, and beyond just looking for that solution for myself, I also figured out, okay, people will also need the solution. So that was how the sale of renewable energy products started for me. Getting inverters, batteries, and solar panels and selling it to people who have access to. But after so many years, over 10 years of selling these products, I saw that I was really not solving the problem that pushed me into renewable energy in the first place, which is being able to give people solution to their problem for power and for fan or cooling. Because so many people come to our store, they make inquiries and go, they don't buy, not because they don't like it, but because they don't have the money to be able to buy these solutions. And there was this evening, I came out to my balcony. Now, this is after over 10 years of selling, and everywhere in my neighborhood was dark,
Mm.
no light.
Mm.
Then I looked at the roof surrounding us. I can't count 10 roofs with solar panel. Then I asked myself, I am selling inverters and batteries, and people still do not have access to these things because of the cost. So it got me thinking, what can we do differently to be able to make sure as many persons as possible have access to power? So that was when the idea of trying to see how to get low income individuals access renewable energy was born. And then we started providing solutions whereby we give them the service and they simply pay for that service. Did it work? Yes, we did a pilot test somewhere in 2001 at around June, where we got to a building, it's a rented apartment that had tenants in it, and told them, we have a solution that we are trying out. We want to give you power. Will you be willing to pay? This power, it means that you will not have to run your generator. And we did a pilot test and it worked fantastically. Then we now go to a cluster of shops where businesses are and also offer them this solution and told them the benefit, both for their health, their business, and also the impact it's going to have on their productivity. They said it's okay, we can give it a try. So we installed the inverter, give them batteries and solar panels, and then give them a pilot test for them to see how the solution works. And they were so happy. When we came back to say, okay, the test is over, we want to remove, they didn't allow us. And that was how we got our pilot solution running. They were happy with it. And so we now said, this is a fantastic idea. So people really want power. Their problem is just they can't be able to pay the huge sum to buy this solution. So, but if we can give them a modular payment solution, that works. So we get people together in a cluster, latch them onto an inverter, batteries, and then share the power for them. It becomes cheaper and more economical for them to be able to pay for power. And it has been a fantastic solution so far for small scale businesses here in Nigeria.
Fantastic. Well, you're coming in, you're putting the infrastructure together, and then you're charging them, a portion of this cost, right? So, can you compare what they pay for the solar to what they would pay, for instance, for gas? I mean, because they're paying for power now, right? So, from our previous
Yeah.
conversation, it's become evident that they still pay, which is a business model for you and the people that are bringing the money in, but they pay less. Could you compare that for us?
Oh, yes. I can use the case of one of our clients. His name is David. He's a hairstylist and he runs his business with a portable generator because in his area, there's just no power from the grid. So he normally runs his shop. He does hair barbing for men. He's a men hairstylist. So when we ask them, because for these clients, before we deploy the solution, we try to find out where is your cost situation right now. And after we deploy the solution, we'll try to see what is your energy cost situation. So for him, he runs his generator with approximately 4,000 naira a day. And when we did the math, we had to calculate that in USD, that's about $2.05, thereabout. So we now gave him solar to be able to run his business. What he pays per day for the same package that carries everything his portable generator used to was about 2,000 naira. That was like half the cost of what he normally spends on his portable generator. And in this case, the power is more constant and stable until he shuts down his business for the day. Not like the generator when he has to run it only when he has clients, and when there's no client, he has to put it off in order to save costs. So he was happier with this solution. It was more efficient for him, and he did not have that grinding noise that the generator kept making, disturbing himself and then his clients. So it's been a wonderful experience with him.
That's so you're creating also like microgrids, right? You're creating a bit of a microgrid, and as you're the households and small business that you work with, they create power, and then you're storing that power. And is it like, how does that work? Are you linking homes together? Is it just one home, like one solar, one little microgrid unit, or what does that look like, and what are you thinking to build in the future? Because if you make a microgrid, it can be actually something that can generate a lot of energy and be productive financially too, right?
Yes, let me walk you through it. So when we look at a cluster of shops or buildings, the way they are structured here, you can get a whole street full of buildings, different kinds of businesses, all in one area. We can check what their energy needs, for instance. If their total energy demand could be like a 10 kilowatt system, we now give them an inverter of that capacity. When we give them the inverter of that capacity, we give each individual from that system just what he needs, because it could be a collection of maybe like 13 different stores altogether. This one may just need 500 watts, the other one 200 watts, the other one 700 watts. So we bring them all together to that system and then meter their lines so that they pay daily for just what they need. They don't have to wait to save money, several thousands of naira, to buy a solar system. But if their daily need, for instance, is say below 1 kilowatt, they may be spending just around 200 naira to be able to get that power. So just what they need, that's what we tailor for them. And this is metered for transparency. They recharge according to what their demand for the day is.
And then what
And
happens?
your system allows them to pay on a daily basis, right? So they're paying every day as opposed to getting a bill,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Just as they use it, like pay-as-you-go solution, they pay. They don't have to wait for one lump sum to be able to, attend to their energy need.
I wanted to know Prisca, how many businesses are you reaching now, and how many are you hoping to reach, and what's the challenges involved in that?
Okay, so currently we have over 300 distinct businesses and homes that we've connected on this solution. Our target for this year is to be able to give at least 3,000 individuals access to power.
Wow.
And we are looking at being able to energize some market hubs where we have a lot of small micro businesses that need this power to run. So if we're able to do that, we hope to be able to meet up our target for this year. So 3,000, that's where we set our eyes on.
And break that down for us in terms of, you have to buy all of the infrastructure to capture the power, to store the power, and deliver the power. So how are you working with investors or grants or government entities for that, to get those dollars to make those capital purchases in advance? How's that working?
Oh yes, it's not been very easy, quite frankly. Yes, so because this is very capital intensive, it's not something someone can do from his or her pocket. It's something we need support for. So if we are to be able to meet up our target for the year, then we need to be able to have access to funds. And the challenge most times is for us, when we get these funds, if we get through a loan, for instance, we have a challenge because the naira is not very valuable in the international market. So when we bring these funds, do these projects, the ability to pay them back in foreign currency, we have a loss in valuation there. So we largely think that if we can have access to grants to mix with these loans, they will be able to help us cushion that effect of exchange rate loss. And for that market hub that we are looking at, for each of them, if we are able to have access to up to like 300,000 USD, that will be able to give those market hubs access to power. So for that amount, what it's going to cover is the cost of infrastructure, that's the inverter system. Then we get batteries, then we get solar panels that will tie onto them. We get their cables to link up all the stores to the system for them to be able to have. We've done a test model for the market. So, but if we have a good source of fund, we should be able to deploy to the whole market. Each of those markets has over 1,500 small shops and businesses that run there. So it would be a great plus for us this year if we are able to energize them.
Yeah, it sounds like real scale. It's a lot of businesses, a lot of homes.
Yeah. One question I have, so let's say that somebody does invest or they invest in these projects. There is some longer term after you've taken care of your capital expenditures, there's some return on investment, right? So because you're producing energy. Is that correct?
Yes, there are. Yes, there is. Currently, already we can already see how wonderful this is going to play out because we have an investor who has already given us some funds, and so far we are still able to meet up our demands to pay back. We take care of all of our expenses, and we are able to pay back. So that is not a challenge at all. So when the funds come in, we will be able to generate enough funds to pay back investors and then enough funds to also make expansions as needed. It's an interesting business, quite frankly, if you look at the model and the way we've laid it out.
Yeah.
Agree.
I'm curious, where do you get your currently, like where do the solar panels come from? Are they all new? Are they recycled? And where do the batteries and your inverters, where does all that come from now?
Okay, so we get tier 1 panels from Jinko Solar. We also get tier 1 panels from Canadian Solar. So we source panels from these two companies because they offer a long life span for their panels. They are like one of the best. They offer good warranty and a long lifespan. For these two panels that we've deployed, we've not had any issue in maybe a drop of efficiency over maybe 2-3 years. They are still performing as expected. So we do that. Then we also have access to lithium batteries. We also do some locations that don't lend themselves to lithium batteries. We also do wet cell batteries for them and then maintain these batteries. Some of those wet cell batteries we source from India because there's a large hub of manufacturing wet cell batteries in India. So we source from them also.
You know, I love that story. I thought it was so powerful when you talked about being on your balcony and looking out in its darkness, right? And having that be a source of inspiration for you. Uh, when you look at all this hard work that you're putting into and all the things you're building and acquiring those capital, elements to build and deploy, right? What gives you the greatest satisfaction in this line of work?
So when I walk out my street at night today, it's lit. There's power. You can feel safe. You can walk around and feel safe. This is what never used to be. When I go to some of these communities that we power, they are supposed to be rural, like low-scale communities. But you look at their shops at night, they are lit, they are powered. There's this particular location that I drive by sometimes in the night at around 8, 9 p.m. They are still on. Their businesses are on. Until they want to close, they close. So when I see those things, and then I see reviews that our clients are willing to give to us, sometimes we just flaunt them on our social media handles. They give me some real satisfaction to know that now I am solving for energy poverty. And that is where the joy comes for me.
That's beautiful. That's definitely beautiful. Do you have a particular story you'd like to share of somebody that you've worked with that you've been able to make a change in their life? I know you talked about your pilot project, but are there any other stories that come to mind for you of businesses or homes or both that you've been able to help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will remember this particular lady. Her name is Mary. She's a tailor. She sews, like she's a seamstress. She makes dress. Before we gave her solution for power, it used to be a struggle for her. She bought all kinds of rechargeable lights, and they don't just work. They don't just last. So normally once it's towards 6 o'clock, she shut her business down and go. But Mary can stay as long as she wants open now, doing her business. In fact, darkness is no longer a problem for her. It's a matter of if she's tired, then she can close and go. So her story was particularly touching because ordinarily Mary would never be able to buy an inverter. She's just a small seamstress, a small tailor who makes clothes for people around her. But Mary has solar. Mary runs her business. Mary is happy with the solution. And Mary gave us her testimony, and we also put it on our online handles. Stories like that, they fill me with joy.
Right? It makes such a big
So
difference
good.
because people have they have the ability to work. I mean, I think people in the, you know, areas like the US, they don't understand what that's like to have energy poverty. In large part, people take it for granted, right? They take it for granted you could just turn a light on, or you can boot your computer up, or turn on your sewing machine, or work. So that's really beautiful. Can you give us a sense of we worked with another organization that was also dealing with energy poverty. And one thing we learned in working with them is that there's like 1 billion people on the planet that don't have access basically to energy. For Nigeria, do you know what that looks like? What's the, like what percentage of the country currently, to your knowledge, is underserved with energy? And
Yeah, we are looking at like 80%. Underserved, unserved. Like 80% of Nigerians don't have access to good electricity. So it's like a chronic disease, right? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. The energy poverty is everywhere. There are just very few people who have access to good electricity. And like I mentioned, the grid is also not very helpful when it comes to electricity supply. We largely don't depend on the grid. So everybody sort of look for a way to cushion the effect of their energy poverty. So if you look at the statistics, about 80% of Nigerians don't have access to good power.
And is your view, Prisca, that like these microgrids will spread? Is that something that will catch on? Will it spread? Because Nigeria also, if I'm correct, also produces a fair amount of fossil fuels too, right? Like the big fossil fuel companies are in Nigeria, right? But there's still energy poverty. It's kind of how does that happen, right? But maybe you could talk to one or both of those. Do you think that microgrid as it'll catch on, and then more and more, is that the way to solve the 80%? Or how do you see the solution for people to get energy in Nigeria?
I think it's going to catch on. it's going to definitely catch on because it makes it easy for people to access power. I can tell you that there's hardly any facility we go to with this solution that says, no, I'm not interested. It's almost, we have a waiting list that we are not able to fully fulfill because of the funds available. So if we have more funds, you see it spreads like wildfire. Everybody wants access to power. So it is going to catch on really quickly. The reason why people don't do solar here is not that they don't know that they need it. Even though, yes, there's some education that needs to go into it. It's because they don't have, there is poverty here. I mean, financially, not a lot of people can afford it. There are those who can, but when it comes to small scale, people at the bottom of the pyramid, they largely can't afford solar. So when you give them a means for them to, they are happy to. And that's why you see all these people who are latching on to the solution once it is offered to them. So yes, if more companies even are able to deploy this solution, it is a vast market that is yet to be tapped. And this solution is just what these people need to be able to access power. So yes, even while, yes, we have fossil fuel, even the fossil fuel is not right now able to give us the kind of power that we need. The grid collapses. The grid collapses. We don't have the infrastructure to be able to carry the demand for power that all of us here in Nigeria need. We don't have that infrastructure. So even if, yes, there is grid, there just has to be an alternative way to support that grid, to support the fossil fuel that is available. So solar has come to stay. In fact, the adoption now is way better than it was 14 years ago when we went into this line of business. It is people are more aware and people are more conscious of how to solve that problem. So yes, the adoption is better today than it was in the past.
What about
yeah.
the Nigerian government? Are there programs or offices that could offer dollars or those types of things, or is it really going to be through entrepreneurs like yourself coming up with these ideas and then doing the work to connect the dots to get the dollars to bring in the capital required to purchase the infrastructure and install it, and then maintain it?
Well, yeah, there has been some good programs to help entrepreneurs here in Nigeria to be able to have access to. Like the first investment we got is a local initiative that was sponsored, and then we're able to have funding for that. There are certain government agencies that have been set up for people who want access to funds to be able to apply to. And then if you meet up the criteria, then they will be able to give you. So yes, in that direction, there are provisions that have been made for people to reach out to be able to have access to those fundings for not just energy, but small businesses that people want to set up. The government have some schemes in place for them to be able to access funding.
Good. Slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely. I have a question for you. So for Enerplaz, for your company, obviously you're building. What would you like our listeners to know about the work that you're doing? What would you like to communicate? And how can we help you, continue doing what you're doing and doing more of it?
Okay. Yes, that's very, if you look at the potential of energy here in Nigeria, it is a very large one. So if it's a space someone is interested to, this is an exciting time to get into renewable energy here in Nigeria, because there are so many people who want power and who are willing to be able to get that power with whatever little funds that they have. So it's a good field to play in right now in Nigeria. And if we have access to grants that will be able to help us scale, it will be a very great thing for us. It will help us to cushion costs of these systems and be able to make it more affordable to people, because at the end of the day, most of this cost is borne by the customers. So, but if there are grants available, it helps drop the cost significantly for these customers, and will also help more and more people to be able to have access to this power that we are supplying. So it's a good one. It's a very good, a very interesting space to play in right now.
Fantastic. Mike, I have another question, Mike, but I don't know if you want to
I don't have another question.
throw it back and forth. Well, I was just thinking that, you mentioned, raising through grants $300,000 US, for example, and obviously this challenge with the NERA, which would have to be overcome, and maybe there's a way that Bitcoin or some kind of crypto coin, can help. That would be really interesting. But $300,000 allows you to empower 3,000. Is that what it is? 3,000 long term, though. It allows you to empower 3,000 people. Or how does that work on the financials?
Okay, so the 300,000, like I mentioned, we have like 2 market hubs that we are looking at to be able to deploy the solution to them. To be able to deliver for one of the market hubs, we are looking at 300,000 USD. So if we have, say, double of that, then we can be able to deploy for the 2 market hubs. So the 300,000 can cater for one of those market hubs where we have about over 1,000, almost 1,500 individual businesses in that market. So because their energy demand is not much, it's not like they are carrying heavy appliances. Basically, they want to be able to have access to light, to fan, and then to a socket that they could plug for their small machinery they're using for work. So their energy demand is not so much. So, but with 300,000, we should be able to get that market functional on renewable energy.
That's
If we are
8,500.
doing the second market,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
No, you go ahead, Prisca.
Okay, so that 300 will cater for one of the market hubs. The other market hub is slightly bigger than the first one. So if we are to do for the second market hub, we'll be looking at getting up to $350,000 to $400,000 for the second market hub. That second market hub has about 1,700 businesses in them. So if we sectionalize it, yes, we can be able to achieve that for the year.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. 8,500 businesses, right? That's a lot of lives that flow out from those businesses and production and everything else. Yeah.
It's also good cash generation. If 8,500 businesses are spending $1 a day, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is. It is. I'm fine.
It was a really inspiring conversation, Prisca. I'm just so impressed with what you've done, your vision, your passion for this, what you're bringing to, your people there in Nigeria. I can't wait for this video to be done so we can get it out and start educating people about, you and the work you're doing. And I hope connect you to some sources of funding. We'll see.
We'll be very glad. The people here will be very glad to have that. Yeah. Like I said, one of the markets that I mentioned, we've discussed, concluded, we are just looking for cash to be able to deploy for them. So if there is source for cash, people like that will be very happy. They'll be very glad. It eases their stress, and it makes their waking up and going to work less stressful than it is, because it's easier when you're working in a cool environment. Probably you have a fan blowing you and you're cool, than the kind of heat we have and you're sweating. You can't even perform optimally. So it will be a very welcome development if we can be able to look for ways to give these people more power.
Very good. Well, I second Mike. Thank you so much, Prisca, for joining us today. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and we will certainly, promote this and you're doing amazing things. So keep on keeping on.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the show today.
Thank you.